Welcome to the Mini Storage Messenger Self-Storage webinar series. I'm Marla Hasofsky, Circulation and Social Media Coordinator filling in for Poppy Behrens, and we're delighted to have you in the audience today. This is one of several informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. The sponsor of today's webinar is Storage Marketing Solutions. Our presenter is Derek M. Naylor, President of SMS. Over the past 7 years, Derek has incrementally increased sales revenue for his clients more than $250 million through innovation and advanced marketing strategies. In 2003, he founded SMS and directed his talents and unique growth strategies exclusively to the self-storage industry. SMS now helps hundreds of operators from coast to coast to increase their occupancy and profits through the company's unique outsourced marketing director program and other tools. He is a regular contributor to Industry Magazine and a dynamic speaker at trade events. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the Mini Storage Messenger, providing the self-storage industry with an in-depth news and information. Each issue of Messenger offers cover stories and feature articles on the most timely industry topics and trends. Monthly columns contributed by industry experts and accomplished business professionals address a wide range of topics including security, facility operations, technology, legal issues, legislative updates, construction, and development. We also publish a variety of other self-storage data sources like the ones you see listed. For more information, please visit ministoragemessenger.com. We invite you to submit questions throughout the webinar. Simply type your question in the question area and click Send. Depending on the question, we will answer it privately or to the whole group. We will try to answer as many questions as we can during the question-answer period at the end of the webinar. Those that we can't answer due to time will be answered via email after the webinar. The webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. Today's presentation should run about 45 minutes with the remainder of the hour open to questions and answers. And now I would like to turn the presentation over to Derek.
Thanks, Marla and Robin. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I was having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. You cut in and out, so I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me. So anyway, I am excited to be doing this, and I figured there is not really a better time, although I guess it could have been a couple weeks earlier, to have this webinar on marketing budget mistakes, myths, and traps, and how to create a marketing budget that works. After all, I believe that most operators and most business owners are creating a budget for 2011 if they haven't already wrapped that up. So in the self-storage industry, it's one of the most common, it's one of the most commonly discussed things, and there's a lot of confusion around it in terms of what to dedicate to a marketing budget, whether or not they should have a marketing budget, and how to come up with the calculation for that. So I want to mention, oops, looks like I advanced one too many there. Go back. There will be gifts and handouts at the end. We're going to be doing some calculations throughout the webinar, so there's going to be handouts at the end that will help you, after we discuss this, it'll help you go back to your office, open up your management software, and run these numbers for yourself, as well as some other gifts. And as always, there's no fine print or tricks. It's just stuff that will help you. So if you hang around to the end, we'll go through this, and then you'll know what to do with the handouts once you get them. All right, so the picture you probably see on your slide right now is a very common face I see when I talk about marketing budgets with people, especially when I talk about Yellow Pages marketing budgets. Nobody likes writing that check. But nobody in this industry really is excited, well, I should say nobody in any industry is excited about spending a whole lot of money on marketing. It's just one of those things that, for whatever reason, people just don't like to do. But at the end of the day, smart marketing creates customers. Customers bring you cash. Without a significant budget, you will slip. We've seen it time and time again. Storage Marketing Solutions has been in business since 2003, and one of the most common reasons we see an operator start slipping in occupancy and in income is that they aren't dedicating enough time or money towards marketing. And it's really a straightforward thing if you think about it. If you're doing marketing right and it's bringing you new customers at a reasonable cost, those customers are worth cash. That's where you get your revenue from. And I know this sounds very elementary, but there's still a large hesitation to spend money on getting customers, which has always been a little bit odd to me. And I'll never forget one of my very first trade shows when I decided to start Storage Marketing Solutions. One of my very first trade shows was in Las Vegas. I think it was for Inside Self-Storage. And I had set up my booth, and the very first guy that came by, and this was back in 2003, mind you, when the self-storage industry was quite a bit different and a lot more, there wasn't quite the competition, and obviously the economy was a lot better off. This guy comes up and he says, so what do y'all do? And I sort of explained to him a little bit what we were doing, and he cut me off halfway and said, that's got to be the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard. And then he literally turned around and walked off. So that was my introduction to the self-storage industry. Fortunately, I stuck it out and didn't base whether or not I was going to stay in this business on what that gentleman said. But that's really the state of mind that a lot of operators, that I think is reflective of what a lot of operators were thinking back in those days, when you really just had to put up a nice marquee sign out front and an ad in the yellow pages. And in most cases, just by doing those two things, you were able to fill up your facility in a very short period of time and even have a waiting list. So this shift from not needing a marketing budget at all, really, other than what you're spending on the yellow pages, to needing a fairly significant marketing budget to not only survive but thrive, is something that angers some people, confuses others, but it is the reality of where we're at. And in fact, I just finished an article, a feature article for Mini Storage Messenger that will be released in January, where I discussed the evolution of industry and why marketing is going to be the differentiator of those that make it and those that don't in this industry. And it's not just this industry. Every industry goes through it, where there's the introduction of the product to the industry, and then there's sort of the maturity. The maturity phase for self-storage was, I'm going to say, probably the mid to late 80s to 2003 to 2005-ish, when it was like a lot of operators called it the days of printing cash, where, again, we go back and all you needed was a yellow page ad and a marquee sign, and you were doing really well. And that's obviously changed, and there's nothing wrong with the self-storage industry. It's still a fantastic and wonderful place to be. It's one of the best industries that I can think of to be in, but it has grown to a point and become recognized enough that you have a lot more competition. I'm sure you know that. And now it's a matter of those operators who are able to acquire and keep customers the longest are going to be the customers that thrive moving forward. And so obviously to do that, you need to have a marketing budget. So what I want to do now is I want to review the old and incomplete methods of creating a marketing budget. And I want to emphasize, it's not that they're all wrong, it's just that it's incomplete. And again, a lot of this is due to the fact that there hasn't really been a serious need for rigorous thinking around creating a marketing budget in our industry. So the first one that I want to talk about is old and incomplete method number one, which is, as a self-storage operator, you should spend 6 to 8% of gross revenue on marketing. Okay, 6 to 8% of gross revenue. I hear that a lot, which is just a rule of thumb. That's not really based on anything, any hard fact or anything significant other than it's a rule of thumb, which most of these old and incomplete methods are simply that. They're just a rule of thumb, which don't have any real substantial reasoning or thinking behind them. Now, the problem with 6 to 8%, now, by the way, 6 to 8% of gross revenue, it might be the right number. I don't know. But the problem with that is that when you're a brand new facility or you're a facility in lease-up, 6 to 8% of $0 is $0. Or if you're in lease-up and the income at the property is not very good, 6 to 8% is still not enough. And there's sort of a paradox with that. I'm thinking many of you are realizing that right now, that if you follow this rule, then when you need marketing the very most, you're not going to have the money to do it. So that's the major problem with this, is that when a facility is in lease-up or a facility is new, 6 to 8% is not nearly enough, just because it's a brand new facility and there's not a lot of revenue in the first place, which is exactly when you need the most marketing, because you need to attract and keep customers. Now, again, if you're a stabilized facility, 6 to 8% might be at the right number, but again, it has no real basis or intelligent thinking on the back end of it. Old and incomplete method number 2. As a self-storage operator, you should spend 85 cents to $1 per rentable square foot per year for a lease-up property and 35 cents to 50 cents for a stabilized property. So let me walk you through this one for a minute because it's kind of a mouthful. Let's say that you have a storage facility that has 100,000 rentable square feet, and it's in lease-up. This rule of thumb states that you should spend between $85,000 and $100,000 per year on marketing. If you have a stabilized property that has 100,000 rentable square feet, you should spend between $35,000 and $50,000 per year on marketing. Now, I'm sure if any owners are listening to this, they might have fallen out of their chair or grasped their heart for a heart attack. But it's not necessarily, it's not that these numbers are not only high, but again, this is making a lot of assumptions that what works in one market works in another, and also that the pricing for marketing is the same in one market as it is in another. And it also makes several other assumptions that I just don't like. So what we want to do is, again, and you'll learn as we go through this, we want to make sure that the budget not only works for you and your goals, but it also works for your market and what's been working in your market and what advertising costs are in your market. We work with more than 400 facilities from coast to coast, and it's amazing, it's absolutely amazing the difference in cost for all sorts of advertising from one part of the country to the other. So a rule like this, again, the number may be right, it may be wrong, I don't really know. It just depends on the facility, but it's just a rule of thumb, and it can lead to a largely inaccurate budget if you follow that blindly. This one, old and incomplete method number 3 is actually one of the most common methods that we hear, which is I create my marketing budget based on what I spent last year and what additional advertisements I've signed up for this year. Now, if this was a live seminar I were doing, I would ask for a raise of hands of how many people set their budget that way, and I'll bet more than 50% of the room or more, probably even 75% of the room would raise their hand and say this is how they create their marketing budget, which again is not necessarily a bad thing, it's just incomplete. What they do is they get, they have their Yellow Page expenditure and their internet marketing expenditure, and maybe they advertise in a local magazine. They take what that cost them to do last year, and they assume they're going to do the same thing for the upcoming year. So they put that in their budget, and then they may have committed to try some direct mail or something else on top of that. So they add that in, and that becomes their marketing budget. Which, if those things are, if the things you did this year worked okay for you and is taking you in the direction you want to go, and you're going to reach your goal in the time frame you want to reach it, then I don't suppose there's anything wrong with this, because you're already on a path that is going to take you where you want to go. Number 4, I don't really know where to start, so I either don't set a budget for marketing or I guess based on past experience. I would say this is also a large percentage of the room if we were in a live room. When we start working with our clients, one of the first things we do is go through what we call a discovery process, where we learn a lot about their facility and what features and benefits the facility has. But we also talk about their income numbers and their occupancy and what their marketing budget is. And a lot of people don't have a marketing budget. Their marketing budget is, if you give me an idea that I think might work, then I'll spend the money on it. If it works, we'll keep doing it. If it doesn't, then we won't do it anymore, which is a partially accurate way of thinking. But again, it leaves you sort of blind at the beginning of the year in terms of what you're going to end up spending on marketing. So again, I don't want to say that any of these methods are wrong or they're going to lead you down a horrible path, but I do want to say that they're just incomplete, and there's a lot smarter way to do it, which I'm going to cover today, and hopefully you'll learn and identify with this. So let's dive into the realistic and most effective way to set your marketing budget. Now, when I dive into this, you're going to realize that it's very simple, but it's proven to be 100% effective. Every time we've done this with a client and they have followed it, we have yet to fail in setting a budget that is not only realistic, but also helps them get to where they want to go. It's fine to have a low marketing budget, or one that's inadequate, but you can't expect to you can't expect to reach your goals if you're not willing to spend the money needed to reach your goals. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's wait for this to advance here. Okay, step number one. Again, this is all going to sound basic, but as most of the fine things are and most of the true things are in life, they are pretty simple and basic, and we just need to follow them. So step one is to set goals. One of my favorite sayings is you'll never hit a target that doesn't exist. Again, as we work with clients across the country, we not only ask them what their budget is, but we ask them what their goal is for the next 12 months. And again, we get the old deer in the headlights look when we ask that question, because not very many operators have a goal in terms of occupancy and income, in terms of where they want to be over the next 12 months. Now, if you don't have one, if you don't have a goal, a lot of times it's because you're not quite sure how to set a goal for this business. So what I want to do here is walk through an example. Hello? Robin, can you hear me?
We got you back.
Okay, sorry about that. My phone cut out for whatever reason.
Oh. Derek?
Are you there again?
Yep.
Okay, not sure what's happening. The conference bridge is kicking me off. So what we're going to offer you at the end, along with a bunch of other gifts, is we're going to design one of these for you. This is called our goal flyer, but what it does is it's something that it's something that puts everybody in your operation on the same page. So if you have a manager, an assistant manager, and an owner, and a maintenance guy, for example, everybody should know what the goal is for the property. And the more you focus on these things, it's sort of strange. It's one of those things that I can't really explain and nobody can really explain, but the more you focus on something, the more it grows. And so this is one of those things that we encourage all of our clients, and I encourage you to put around your office, put it behind your desk, put it behind the manager's desk where they can see it but the customers can't. If you're the owner, put it on your wall in front of your desk or wherever is appropriate. But it's something that needs to be reviewed every single day. If you've studied goal setting in any area of life, whether it be to lose weight or to increase your wealth or whatever it is, anytime you set a goal, it's important that you review that goal every day. And for self-storage, it's no different. Now, in case you can't read what it says up top, it says, I commit to focus my thoughts, energy, and actions to reach blank % physical and economic occupancy by blank. To do this, we need to increase our net rents by blank units by blank. This equates to blank new rentals per month or blank per week until blank. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of blanks there, so let me just give you an example of what that might look like. If this was complete, it would say, and of course, this varies, for your facility and what you want to do, but you would say, I commit to focus my thoughts, energy, and actions to reach 90% physical and economic occupancy by December 31st, 2011. To do this, we need to increase our net rents by 100 units by December 31st, 2011. This equates to blank per month and then blank per week. So you simply break it down into a monthly goal and a weekly goal. And the importance of this is not only the language. Obviously, we're committing, and there's a little line for a signature here. So I'm sure you know if you sign something, or if you can get somebody to sign something, then their commitment goes up, even if they know there's not significant consequences. For example, one of the oldest car salesman tricks in the book is if you're looking at buying a car and you're negotiating price, they'll just grab a blank sheet of paper and say, if I can get your monthly payments to this amount, will you buy the car? And if you say yes, then they just ask you to sign a blank piece of paper. There's no binding terms and conditions or anything like that. What it is it's a subconscious thing that we've been trained, largely that if we sign something, then we've made a commitment. So the same is true with setting a goal. We want the manager to sign this. We want the owner to sign it. We want everyone involved in the facility to sign this. And one of the other things too that's important about this is we break it down. getting 100 new rentals may seem overwhelming for most people because it's a fairly big number. But when you break that down, I think that's 8.3 rentals per month and just over 2 per week. So when you break it down into those kinds of numbers, then obviously it becomes a lot more believable and a lot more exciting for people to do just because they're not overwhelmed. The problem with most goals that are big goals is that they're set too big and people get overwhelmed and don't even start. So again, we will design one of those for you. If you hang out till the end, we'll give you a way to do that. We'll design it professionally for you. It'll be color. It'll have your logo on it. It'll look really sharp and be something that you can keep around your office, and we'll do that for free for you for being on this webinar. Okay, so step number 1 is to set a goal. Step number 2 is to understand and agree with your lifetime tenant value. And the reason I have the word agree underlined is because there are a lot of people who walk around saying that they know what their lifetime tenant value is, but they really don't believe the number, which is a major problem. So I want you to think of this as an appraisal on real estate or jewelry, for example. You wouldn't dream of buying a piece of real estate without getting an appraisal on it first. Most of the time, if you're buying a nice piece of jewelry, you probably wouldn't buy that without getting an appraisal done on it first either. And the same is true with buying customers. Marketing is really a game of buying customers for less money than they're worth. I'll state, marketing is a game of buying customers for less money than they're worth to you. So obviously one key to that is you've got to know what they're worth to you. Now there's a very simple way to do this, and that is to take your average monthly rent. So let's say that your average monthly rent is $100, and you multiply it by your average monthly stay, which let's say that's 10 months, and then you add in your average merchandise purchase, which let's say that's $20. Your average lifetime customer value is $1,020, which is that $100 in monthly rent multiplied by 10 months as the average length of stay plus the average merchandise purchase of $20, so $1,020. That's the easy way to figure out your average lifetime customer value. Now there are much more sophisticated ways to do this to factor in unit types. You actually have a different customer value per unit type throughout your facility, but when you start thinking that way, it turns into a little bit of a paralysis by analysis situation where you're overthinking it and making it overly complicated, and at the end of the day, the number comes to be, if you did it that way, it might come out that your lifetime customer value is $998 instead of $1,020. So at the end of the day, the difference is not big enough to really cause any problems, or it might go up a little bit. So if you don't know your average lifetime customer value, which again, very few self-storage operators know that number, so don't feel bad if you don't. And again, we work with very sophisticated operators, and they don't even know what the number is, or they didn't know what the number was until we started working with them. But this is one of those things that you not only have to know what it is, but you have to agree with it in your heart, because if you're going to be spending money on marketing, you've got to be comfortable with the fact that if you're going to spend $100 to acquire a customer, that they're worth $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is. You've got to be comfortable in making that investment, because marketing truly is an investment. So now, if you're using SiteLink Web Edition, we actually have a formula or an automated tool that we built at great expense. So if you want us to run that for you and you're using SiteLink Web, unfortunately that's the only software program we can do it for right now. You can send us an email and we'll run that for you, so you don't have to do this. But if you're using anything else besides SiteLink Web, I encourage you just to take the average monthly rent, multiply it by the average length of stay, and add in your average merchandise purchase. And do it from your own data. Don't let anyone else tell you what it is. You need to come to the conclusion yourself, because if you don't believe it, then there's no point in doing this exercise. Okay, step number 3. Establish what you're willing to pay to acquire a new customer. So ideally, this is a combination of historical data and what your threshold is. Now, again, I stated earlier that marketing is really a game of buying customers for less than they're worth to you. So once you know what your lifetime customer value is, On average, it's, and I will tell you, on average, across our client base, and this is just our client base, this is not all facilities or anything, this is just our client base, the number hangs out right around $1,000 in terms of lifetime customer value. So yours might be a little bit higher, yours might be a little bit lower, but just for sake of this conversation, it's right about $1,000 for our customers, and I would guess yours is somewhere close to that too. We do have some clients that have lifetime customer values of more than $2,000, and we have others that have lifetime customer values of $650 to $700. So it will vary, and it will vary by store. So if you have more than one store, be sure to figure out your lifetime customer value per store. That way you can obviously set your marketing budget per store. Now, on to step 3, again, establish what you're willing to pay to acquire a new customer. So back to the real estate analogy, once you get an appraisal back on a piece of real estate, you then put together an offer on what you're willing to pay for that piece of real estate and submit it to the seller. Now, the same is really true with marketing, in that you need to establish, once you know what your customers are worth, you need to establish what you're willing to pay to get them. Now, we're in the business to make money, in the self-storage business. So if your customers are worth $1,000, you don't want to spend $1,000 to get them. You want to spend, ideally quite a bit less than that, so you can get a good return on your investment. But what a lot of people do here is they get their historical data, and then they combine that with their threshold. So what I mean by that is they look back over time and they see what on average they've been paying to acquire customers in the past. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if some of you know what your number is right now, but again, this is a number that is not very common in the self-storage industry, just because, again, marketing is fairly new in terms of being sophisticated about it in this industry. So go back over, maybe go back over 2010 and 2009 and take your total marketing budget and divide it by the total number of new customers that were generated. That will give you a very simple number in terms of what your average or what your cost per customer acquisition is. Now, if you want to be a little bit more advanced, which we recommend, you break it down by medium. So you'll not only know what your cost per customer is from internet marketing, but if you're doing direct mail, you'll know what your cost per acquisition is for direct mail. If you're running Yellow Page ads still, you'll know what it is for Yellow Pages, and so on, because your cost per customer acquisition will be different for each advertising medium that you use. But again, for the sake of not overwhelming anybody and just getting started on this process, it's perfectly okay to take your total amount of money you spent on marketing this year, divide it by the number of total new tenants you got, and that'll give you a fairly good cost per customer acquisition. Now, one of the things that you have to factor in is that you do get a percentage of people from walk-in. Now, there's a whole debate that could be had on that, but I encourage you not to let that bog you down too much. Sure, there's some people who drove by and walked in because they saw your sign. Well, you can factor the sign in as a marketing cost, but a good percentage of the people who say they found you by driving by actually found you on the internet or in the Yellow Pages or somewhere else, and they're just driving by and saying that. Largely, one of the most fascinating things that I found in this industry is that consumers don't really pay attention to where they truly found you or where they truly heard of you first. So that's something to think about, but it's not something to get overwhelmed with. Again, just find what your historical data is on what you have paid to acquire a customer, and then compare that with your threshold. So, for example, let's say that over the past couple years, you've been paying $150 to acquire a new customer. But after learning that your customers are worth $1,500, you set a threshold of $500, saying that, yeah, I want to pay as little as possible, which of course we all do. But if I have to pay $500, then I will pay $500 because I know that my average customer is going to be worth $1,500. And this is where it becomes a little bit useful to have your lifetime customer value by unit type, because then you can set your threshold per unit type that you have. So obviously, a 5x5 non-climate control customer is not going to be worth nearly as much as a 10x30 climate control or a 10x20 climate control. so that way you can set thresholds for each individual unit type. But again, to keep this simple, and keeping it simple not only will help you get started, but it's not, I don't want you to feel like you're giving up and giving into the easy way to do it, because the numbers always come out to be pretty close to the same as if you did it the more complicated way. Okay, so once you've established what you're willing to pay to acquire a customer, the next thing you need to do is dig out your Trusty calculator and do the math. And I've got a little disclaimer here which says you might want to sit down if you're not accustomed to spending money on marketing. Most operators in today's climate do not spend nearly enough money on marketing. Now, of course, you'd expect me to say that because we are a marketing company, but I can tell you undoubtedly that we have clients that spend a good amount. They spend what they should on marketing, and they're having their best years not only in terms of occupancy but in terms of income, and they've had their best years during the worst of times. I'm talking 2008, 2009, 2010, when most people are struggling. They're having their best years because they understand that they need to do everything they can to acquire a customer, because customers are the ones that bring in the cash. But I would say by far and large, most self-storage operators don't spend even close to what they should spend on marketing, and they're sliding backwards because of it. Their income is dropping and their occupancy is dropping. So what you need to do is you need to do the math, and I'm going to walk you through an example on what math exactly we're doing here. So this is it's all based on a goal. So hopefully you're starting to see that this way of setting a marketing budget is not a rule of thumb. It's not based on theory. It's based on hard fact of where you want to go, how fast you want to get there, and how much you're willing to spend to get there. So, for example, let's say that your current occupancy is 77%. And by the way, we can send these slideshows out if you want, if you request those as well, so you can see these numbers. But let's say that your current occupancy is 77%, and in 12 months you want to bump that up to 87%, which 10% over a period of a year is not an unrealistic goal for most facilities. To do that, there needs to be a net rent increase of 90 rentals. So in order to jump that 10%, this facility needs to increase their net rents by 90 rentals over that period of a year. You also have to factor in average monthly vacates, right? Obviously, if no one was ever moving out, this business would be even better. But we have people moving out, and I use the word net rents on purpose because we have to gain by 90. So you have to gain net by 90. So that means you have to factor in the number of people who vacate. So this facility has an average monthly vacate of 15 rentals or 15 customers per month. So that means that the average rentals, or the actual rentals needed to reach the goal is 270. Now, in case you're not following where that math came from, what we did is we took 15 times 12, because on average 15 people move out per month, and there's 12 months in a year. So 15 times 12, and then we added in the 90, and that's where we got the 270 from. So the net rents need to be 90, but actual rentals need to be 270 because of the vacates. Okay, sorry about that. I had to take a drink. I've got a little bit of a head cold. So now that you know you have 270 rentals to get over the period of a year, let's look at our average lifetime customer value. For this facility, their average lifetime customer value is $1,288. And this particular operator was willing to pay $300 maximum for a new customer. They said, you know what, I understand they're worth $1,200, but I'm really not comfortable spending any more than $300 to acquire a new customer. So that means, based on that, means you have to take 300 and multiply it by 270, which gives this facility a marketing budget of $81,000 or $6,750 per month. Now, again, that number may seem extremely high, but when you understand that marketing is an investment, and that by doing that you're going to be getting customers that are worth whatever they're worth to your facility. For this particular facility, if they reach their goal, $347,760 is added to their revenue over that 12-month period, and a huge valuation increase of the asset. Depending on what cap rates are, that could, right now, that means about a $3 million increase in valuation of that asset. So to spend $81,000 and get $347,000 in additional cash flow, but not only that cash flow, but also the $3 million in valuation, in the valuation of your asset, that seems like an extremely, I don't know about you, but that's an extremely good investment to me. Now, one thing to note is that the budget will be the maximum spent if you focus on the 3 pillars of effective self-storage marketing. Now, what I mean by that is, keep in mind that the $300 multiplied by 270, that's the maximum that this owner was willing to spend on acquiring a customer. Doesn't mean that every customer is going to cost them that much money. If you focus on the 3 pillars of effective self-storage marketing, and those of you who have been on my webinars before have heard me talk about this, but marketing in this industry is not just about getting new customers and increasing occupancy. It's also about, that's one of the pillars. The second pillar is increasing customer lifetime value, and the third is improving marketing efficiency. Now, if you focus on those 3 pillars, chances are you can get those 270 customers, and not only will you get those 270 customers, but their lifetime value to you will probably be more than $1,288 in this scenario. And you'll probably, by getting better at marketing efficiency, which means getting better at things like converting leads to rentals over the phone or when somebody walks in, or getting smarter about what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to in other advertising mediums, that cost per customer will be a maximum $300, but chances are it'll be a lot less. So that's the important thing, is you set the budget so the money's there to spend if you need it, but in all reality, chances are you're not going to spend nearly that amount of money in order to get where you want to go if you focus on those 3 pillars of effective self-storage marketing. Now, hopefully everyone is following this math. I know this is new to most of you, but it's not overly complicated. It's just a matter of how many people are moving out, how many people you want to move in, where you want to be, where you're at, and then your average lifetime customer value, and then what you want to spend to get a customer. But once you figure this out, then you become extremely empowered to go out and make it happen. If you don't do this, then you have constant anxiety and constant stress throughout the year, because most people do, they set their goal of 87% in 12 months, or whatever their goal is, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get there. And that's one of the major problems that we see in this industry right now, is a lot of people want to grow occupancy. They want to get back up to a really, really solid level of 92, 95%, but they're not willing to do what it takes to get there. They're not willing to do marketing. They're not willing to spend a lot of time or money on marketing, so they don't get there, and then everyone's frustrated at the end of the year. So again, we will send this slideshow as well as several worksheets over so you can do this on your own. But at the end of the day, when you view marketing as an investment rather than an expense, these numbers are not all that big or overwhelming. Another thing to be factored in as well is scalability of the marketing channels that you use. There are certain things like Yellow Pages, for example. By the way, Yellow Pages still work very well in a lot of markets. So I know that that's not a popular thing to say these days because internet marketing is so big, but we have many clients in many markets where their Yellow Page ads are still working and working better than their internet marketing even. So, but Yellow Pages, for example, cannot be scaled up immediately. You can always buy a bigger ad later, but mid-year, if you decide to, you can't buy a bigger ad, or you cannot have them scale that out. So you have to make sure that a lot of the marketing things you're doing, like direct mail, for example, is completely scalable. You can send out 5,000 pieces or 50,000 pieces or 100,000 pieces as long as you're getting that return on investment. So that's something else to factor in as well. Let's see if I can advance to the next slide. So because I know I just gave you a giant headache with all these numbers, may have overwhelmed you, I do want to give you some of these free gifts that I mentioned. The first one is a free custom design of your goal flyer. I showed you that at the beginning. If you'll just send us what your goals are and what those numbers are, we will design it for you. If you send us your logo, we'll put your logo on it and match the color so it looks really nice and it's something that is not an eyesore hanging on your wall. We'll also give you a free copy of the 3 pillars of effective self-storage marketing. I mentioned those at the end as a good way to get more without spending more in terms of occupancy and income at your self-storage facility. The third thing is a budget creation worksheet where you just have to fill in the blanks. So you'll be able to come up with all those calculations that I've done for you throughout this webinar on your own, using your own data from your own management software. All you have to do is fill in the blanks, and it will, and get a calculator out so you can do the math, and you'll be good to go with your budget. We'll also give you free access to Self-Storage Email Marketing Elite and Self-Storage Manager Elite until February 1st, 2011. This is something that both of these things will help you acquire customers for less money. And we're going to send you, after this webinar is over, we're going to send you a little overview as to what those are. But one of those is a very advanced email marketing system that is very inexpensive, and it not only makes your customers or helps your customers stay longer, makes them more loyal, they give you more referrals, they're referring you to their friends and family on Facebook, we're reactivating past customers. So if you've had people move out, we're reactivating them, and it does it all for you automatically, and it's self-storage specific. You don't have to know any programming, you don't have to write anything. It's all done for you. We're going to give you a 30-day trial of that. Self-Storage Manager Elite is a sales, marketing, and customer service training program. Again, one of the best ways to get more without spending any additional money is to increase your lead to rental conversion rate. So if you're getting 100 new inquiries a month now, and you're closing at 35%, that means you're getting 35 new customers or 35 new tenants. If you're able to increase that to 50%, so from 35 to 50%, which is very, very realistic, by the way. We have people do that almost every single day on that program. You get 50 customers a month instead of 35, which is an increase of 15 net rentals without spending an extra penny. And by participating in Self-Storage Manager Elite, you can get there. And yeah, we're going to give you a free trial of that as well. We're also going to give you a free 30-minute marketing tune-up call with one of our self-storage marketing experts that you can ask any question to about any of your marketing challenges. If you just want to walk through this budget exercise with them, that's fine. If you want to talk about anything else, you can basically, the half hour is yours, and hopefully we'll tune up some of your marketing programs, and you can get a lot bigger bang for your buck. And this is all stuff that's worth real money. The total real-world value is $499. So I highly encourage you to take advantage of these gifts. If you want them, send an email to info@storagemarketingsolutions.com. And over the next couple of days, we're probably going to get a lot of response. There's a lot of people on here, so if you can just be patient with us, we will get those to you in the next couple of days. That way you can start working on this. And I believe that's it, other than the question and answer period that we set aside 15 minutes for.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead and type them in the question box. Okay, we have one question. Is free rent or discounts factored into the marketing costs?
So the question was, are free rent or discounts factored into the marketing cost? Is that what it was, Marla?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I can tell you we have clients that do it both ways, and it really just depends on how you think about it. In my opinion, if you give away free rent to get a customer, you can't give away something that you don't have. So unless you're already getting rent, let's say, unless you give away rent to a customer that's already giving you rent, then I would say it's not really, you should not factor it in as a marketing cost, not only because almost everybody is offering something like that these days, but again, I operate very strongly not in the world of should-haves and would-haves and could-be's, but in the world of reality, which is you're not giving away anything unless you already had it. So, but I can tell you across our client base, we have people who disagree with me and they do factor that in, and we have people who do agree with me and they don't factor it in. It's just a promotion cost that it doesn't count as a part of the marketing cost. It's just rather a promotion that they have to give away. But what it does do, and what I do agree with, is the fact that it does lower your average lifetime customer value. So if you were collecting, back to our example, if your average length of stay was 10 months and the average monthly rent is $100, if you're giving away one of those months, then obviously that you got to take $100 out of that because you're giving away a month. So yeah, that's where I would account for that, not on the cost of marketing, but in the lifetime customer value side of things, because it does lower their value to your organization.
Okay, great. The next question is, does $300 max for a new customer include contract center fees to answer calls and quote potential customers?
Again, that's one of those. That's a very subjective thing. I would say $300 to acquire a customer should factor in all of your marketing, everything it takes to acquire that customer. So if you do have a call center, then yes, I would factor that in as its own, as part of your overall marketing budget. A lot of our clients, though, do put call center under operations, so they're not necessarily factoring that in as a marketing cost. But if that's what, since that's part of the equation of getting a customer, I would definitely put it in there if it were me. But it's completely up to you. Again, we have some clients that put it on their P&L as under the operations category, and we have others that do factor it in as a marketing cost because it is part of that equation.
Okay, this next question kind of got typed in pieces, so give me a second here.
Okay.
It says, in your example of $370,000 added revenue and the increased enterprise value after cap rate multiple, have you deducted the added marketing cost? Is the ROI adjusted to take on board the added marketing cost outlay?
I'm having a hard time understanding exactly what that question is asking. I think they're saying, in that example, well, I think the larger question is the increase in valuation factored in, or is the increase in marketing budget factored in the cap rate should they decide to sell that facility? I'm not a broker of facilities, but from my understanding, that is based on net operating income, which is a multiple of net operating income. So yes, that marketing budget, whatever your marketing budget is, it is, and that will obviously impact your net operating income. So it would affect your the selling price, but not nearly. And I mean, the pros versus cons, the pros far outweigh the cons. But it would, since it is an expense on your P&Ls, it would definitely affect your net operating income, which therefore would affect the valuation of your asset.
Okay.
Hopefully I answered that question. I'm not quite sure. I didn't quite get what the question was asking, but that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of, like I said, it was kind of typed in between. Looks like there was another one that says, since no one eats at McDonald's by looking in the yellow pages, would you suggest a greater emphasis on signage and visibility than on other methods?
Again, I'm not quite sure what they mean by the no one eats at McDonald's. Can you repeat that question?
Basically, I think they're asking, would you place a greater emphasis on signage and visibility than putting ads in the yellow pages, using McDonald's as an example? Most people go to McDonald's because they see it versus looking it up in the yellow pages.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Yes, I would. I mean, your location is one of your best marketing mediums there is. So if you can increase the visibility by putting a bigger sign or by putting a temporary sign out on the road, we've even had clients put big 10-foot by 50-foot banners on the top of their roof when in the event that their city code allows that. And by simply doing that, let me just say this: if you can, with your city code, increase the amount of visibility you get from drive-by traffic, I would focus on that first and foremost before I looked at anything, internet marketing, yellow pages, direct mail, or anything, because that is, again, you're having, however many thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of cars drive by there every day, and the more attention you can capture from those people, the better. So I would always, one of the first things we do with our clients is ask them, what their city code is and what we can do in terms of increasing that visibility, because it is extremely powerful. So that's a very good question, and I appreciate whoever asked that asking it, because it's oftentimes overlooked with the shiny object syndrome of the internet. The good old-fashioned drive-by traffic and visibility is crucial if you can do it. So many cities these days, though, they pretty much don't allow you to do anything. So it's a lot of really good facilities are almost invisible from the street, which is sad, and they can't do anything about it because the city's got them blocked.
Great. Can you repeat the email address again?
Yes, it's info, so short for information, info at storagemarketingsolutions.com.
Thank you. How do I battle the arguments of walk-in customers?
I believe that's in the context of how to factor in walk-in customers in all of this. It's one of those things where walk-in customers are going to be, some of our clients factor that in as its own marketing expense because they are paying for signage every month, and if they're changing out signage every month, they're paying for that. If they're running promotions to get people to stop in, like stop in and get a free gift, they factor that in. But just a good old-fashioned walk-in, you can either factor that in at zero marketing cost, or you can take the cost of whatever signage or whatever you have out front and call that the marketing cost. But if you don't have any cost to that, and someone just walks in off the street, then I would say there's no marketing cost associated with that if they truly walked in off the street. But again, one of the biggest challenges in our industry, and there is no black and white answer, period, is that some people will look on the internet and look at your address and drive in, and then when you ask them how they heard about you, they'll say, I just drove by and stopped. And vice versa. We have a lot of people who will drive by the facility every day because let's say they work close by, and then once they get to their office, they might forget the name of the facility or the phone number. They get onto Google, they search it out, and they find it. And if there's a tracking number on that Google ad, or the customer asks, what are you looking at right now that you got our phone number from? They'll say the internet. So the internet gets credit when in reality, the person first saw you from drive-by. So since there is no black and white answer, one of the most important things that I can tell everyone on this webinar to do is to take the tenants however you can get them, and just reasonably just understand that none of your tracking is going to be 100% accurate. Those two examples I just gave you are always going to happen, and there's nothing that we can do about it. But we just have to know that when we track the performance of internet marketing or drive-by traffic or direct mail, we just have to know that that's not a completely black and white number, but it is in the ballpark.
Great.
Because marketing is a holistic effort. I mean, it always has been, and it always will be. People will see you in multiple places, and it's hard to say which one of those things influence them to pick up the phone and call or stop in.
What do you think is the most effective type of marketing for a small facility?
This goes back to the previous question, which is drive-by signage. If this small facility is in an area where you can expand the visibility, but with drive-by signage, get creative and put a huge banner on your roof so that everybody who drives by, with a good offer on it too, by the way, so that everyone who drives by has no doubt who you are and what the offer is. If they can't expand on that, if they're stuck in terms of what the city code is, I would say effective database marketing is probably second on that list, which is marketing to your existing customers with all sorts of offers, not only to sell a referral program, but to sell additional units, to drive community events and different things like that, where you can get a lot of rentals. And those two things are both pretty cheap for a small facility without a lot of cash to spend on marketing.
Okay, great. Another question: how did you get to the 270 rental goal?
The 270 rentals, let me just go back to that slide here. Let's see, I don't know how we got here. Marla, can you take me back to that slide?
Yeah.
Just before the questions? Oh, one more, sorry.
No worries. I just got to move the question box out of the way or you won't be able to see it.
Okay, so 270. Then this facility, again, based on how many units they had to, in order for them to go from 77% to 87% in 12 months, they had to increase their net rents by 90. Okay, but because that's net rents, it's not just total rentals. We have to factor in how many people move out. This facility had an average monthly vacates of 15. So we took the 15 and multiplied it by 12, since 15 people move out per month. And then we added in the 90. So 15 times 12 is 180 plus 90 is 270. So that's where that came from. It's simply, I mean, it's unrealistic if you do not factor in the amount of people who move out, because, I mean, as we all know in this industry, you could get 15 new customers a month, and if no one moved out, you would have a fantastic year. But of course, we have to deal with those pesky customers who want to move out. Any other questions?
Yeah, looks like we have time for one more. Do you consider call center cost a marketing cost or an operations cost?
I think we had a question similar to that earlier. I consider it a marketing cost, because it is in that process of, if you draw a straight line on a piece of paper and put a little mark on that at every touch or every point or every process that is needed in order for that customer to become a customer, I would factor it in as a marketing cost, because it is necessary for somebody to pick up the phone and do a good job of persuading that person that you're the facility to store with in order for that person to become a customer. So I always recommend factoring that in as a marketing cost, not an operational cost. But again, we do have clients who have like an all calls model, where the call center is answering all calls, like for bills and for people to make payment on their unit, or to ask a question on their account, or to figure out what their gate code is. So if you're having an all calls model, then I would probably split it between marketing and operations, just because they aren't always dealing with marketing; they're dealing with true operations functionalities.
Okay, Derek, we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. We seem to have lost audio, perhaps. Thank you to everyone for attending. We hope you've provided a useful information to assist you in your investment or development endeavors. You will receive an email shortly with the link to the archive presentation.
I'm sorry,
Watch
Marla,
your
if you're
inbox
talking,
for this email.
I cannot hear you.
Be sure to check our website at ministoragemessenger.com for our 2011 webinar series. Thank you again for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day.